Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the podcast. I'm Lewis, and I'm recording this on a Sunday, and I've just had some lunch, and I'm just about to start watching football, but I've got like an hour and a half before football starts, and my girlfriend's just gone out to meet a couple of friends, so I thought, now is the time. Now is the moment to, record another podcast and take advantage of this free time that I have to, well, keep making some content. So I was just having a nice refreshment. This is a smoothie that I bought, and it seems really healthy because the ingredients are apple, cucumber, banana, and kiwi, which is a little bit strange, but it tastes good. It smells a bit funny, a bit funky, a bit strange, but it's good. And it's good for me as well. It's healthy. But tell me, what is your favorite drink? What is your go-to drink? Are you a fan of juices and smoothies? Or do you prefer just water? Or maybe some fizzy pop like Fanta or Coke or something similar? I, of course, like to drink a little bit of everything, but in particular, at the weekend, I enjoy a nice fruit smoothie. And after I have it, I feel like I'm being really healthy. Maybe it's got loads of random additives. I'm not sure, but it seems healthy to me. So I'm going to have a sip. Delicious. So anyway, over the last couple of weeks in this podcast, I've been answering 50 different conversation questions related to phrasal verbs and idioms. So it could be about any topic, but I've been covering and teaching and explaining 50 phrasal verbs, 50 English idioms, and today I thought I'd continue with this practice and this theme by going over 50 conversation questions which incorporate some British English slang, words, phrases, or just stuff that us Brits tend to use over and over again. So, I hope you're ready, strapped in, and enjoying what I am saying so far, because I'm going to be speaking for around about an hour so you can improve your English listening skills. And as always, if you have any questions or anything is unclear during this podcast, you can leave me a message or a question in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to answer if I can. Fingers crossed. But let's get started, and I'm going to share my screen. So if you are watching this on YouTube or you're watching it on Spotify, you can check out these questions. If you just prefer to listen, that's absolutely fine as well. You choose. The ball is in your court. Do whatever you like. So the first 5 questions are all related to daily life and routines. And question number 1 is, what do you usually do after a long day? Do you just veg out in front of the telly? And yes, I do. First of all, to veg out is like to be like a vegetable, lying down without doing anything. So this is something I do quite a lot. I veg out. In fact, an hour ago, I was vegging out on the sofa in front of the telly. I was watching the series The White Lotus, which is about a group of rich people who go on holiday to Hawaii, but everybody's got their unique story and issues, and then all of the guests interact with each other, and many things happen. But yeah, after a long day, during the week, usually I don't want to go out, so I do tend to just veg out in front of the telly. I might make some dinner first, and then start eating, and then after I've eaten, that's my moment to do absolutely nothing. That is when I veg out in front of the telly. Now, question number 2. Are you more of an early bird or a night owl? Or do you just have a lie-in whenever possible? Now, I've gone over the meaning of early bird and night owl before. An early bird is a morning person, and a night owl is, well, a night person. But then here it asks, do you just have a lie-in? So to have a lie-in is to sleep in, to sleep until late. And maybe I've mentioned this before, but I prefer to be a little bit more of an early bird. I prefer to wake up early and feel like I'm taking advantage of the day. And if I can work more during the morning and the afternoon and less at night, then for me, this is a much more balanced life. So I'm not a night owl at all. And today, given that it is Sunday, I do usually try to have a lie-in. So yesterday, I woke up at about 9:30, which is relatively late, but I wouldn't really class it as a lie-in. And today, I woke up at 10:15. So, wow, it was a proper lie-in. So, I never really set an alarm at the weekend, because the weekend, I love going to bed and feeling that I don't have to set an alarm, and I know that I'm not going to get woken up by my phone. I might get woken up by noises from the street or by my girlfriend. I might get woken up by many things, but it's not going to be my alarm clock. And this is something that I consider very, very important. So yeah, I do have a lie-in whenever possible, but not until like 11 or 12, because then it's too late and I feel a bit guilty that I haven't made the most of the day. So that's what I'll say. And number 3, what's your go-to brekkie when you can't be bothered to cook? A brekkie is breakfast. And if I can't be bothered, it means I don't want to. I feel lazy about doing it. And my go-to brekkie is no brekkie at all. So I can never be bothered to cook first thing in the morning. I always skip breakfast. And what I might have, maybe, is a little bit of fruit. So when I'm having my coffee in the morning, which I have to have, without doubt, it's non-negotiable. I must have caffeine in the morning. But I can never be bothered to cook in the morning, and I'm not that hungry. So I think, I'll skip breakfast and then have a bigger lunch. And of course, I cook in order to make myself lunch. But my go-to brekkie is nothing except an espresso and maybe a little bit of fruit. Maybe an apple or a banana, and that'll do, to be honest. So yeah, I never really have brekkie, unless I'm staying in a hotel and you have free breakfast. And then in a hotel, the breakfast is like a buffet all you can eat. So if I have an all you can eat thing included, I have to take advantage of it. I have to wake up earlier and then go down, have my breakfast, and have as much as humanly possible. So I'll start maybe with a full English, then I'll have a sandwich, then maybe I'll have some fruit, and after that I'll have some like sweet desserts, all washed down with plenty of coffee or tea. Beautiful. That is the only time when I have brekkie. All right, number 4. Do you ever pop down to the corner shop for snacks or bits and bobs? So to pop somewhere is to go somewhere. So do you ever go down to the corner shop for snacks or bits and bobs? We can also say bits and pieces. And bits and pieces are just like things, items, random stuff. So, in fact, I have the corner shop, or basically a supermarket around the corner. And sometimes I'll have to pop out and pick up, I don't know, some potatoes or I'll have to pick up some milk. I'll have to pick up some smoothies, or maybe some detergent, or maybe some other random cleaning products. So, yeah, a lot of the time, because I live very close to a corner shop or a supermarket, I always go and pick up some bits and bobs. Because I rarely do a big shop, because I don't like wasting food. And I feel like if I do one big shop once a week, there is a chance that some of the fresh food will go off, or I won't actually cook it, and then I'll have to throw it away. And this is something I hate. I hate wasting food. So I make sure that I buy little and often, just like how I advise you to improve your English, little and often. And I'll go and I'll pick up some bits and bobs, for sure. All right, number 5. Are you any good at DIY? Do it yourself. Or do you bodge it and hope for the best? To bodge something is to do something quite badly. To try to do something, but not do it how you should do it. And I'm terrible at DIY. Awful. Absolutely disastrous. I cannot even change a light bulb. I cannot set up any kind of IKEA furniture. Like, literally anything that you should be able to do living independently in a house, or if I had my own property, I'd need to call someone. I'd need to call a handyman all the time because I'm useless at DIY. But I don't usually bodge it because I won't even try. And maybe that's the reason why I'm so bad at DIY. The whole idea of DIY for me is so intimidating, and I just feel clueless. I haven't got an idea. I've no idea how to do all of these basic things. So perhaps that can be a New Year's resolution for next year, to teach myself how to be good at DIY. Or maybe not even good, but better. The bar is very low. So, to be honest, it would be very easy to get better because I'm so bad. I'm awful at DIY. All right, let's move on to the next section. 5 more questions, this time related to social life and a chat. And I'm going to have a little bit more of my smoothie. Delicious. So, number 6. When was the last time you had a proper chin wag with a mate? So when was the last time you had a real chat, a real conversation with a mate? And a mate is a friend. So a proper chin wag. Well, I suppose I went home a few weeks ago and I caught up with my mates. I had a chat with them. I remember we were outside, we were having a drink, we were catching up. And to be honest, this is probably the last time I had a proper chin wag with an old mate. Because I meet up with my mates every week, more or less. We'll have a chit chat, we'll have a chin wag, but we usually don't go that deep. It's all very surface level stuff. But a few weeks ago, I had a deeper conversation with my mates. I was speaking about some family issues that I had had, and my other mate was telling me about some problems that he had had recently. So it was one of these times we were actually speaking about important life stuff and not just talking about football. So that is probably the last time I had a proper chin wag with a mate. Number 7. Do you enjoy a cuppa, or are you more of a coffee person? I enjoy a cuppa, a cup of tea, yes, but I'm definitely more of a coffee person. And it's weird with coffee, because I only started drinking coffee when I was at university. My girlfriend actually didn't drink coffee up until 2 years ago. She always used to hate the taste, and it's definitely something that grows on you. So the more you drink coffee, the more you like it. It's very addictive. By the way, in American English, they would probably say addicting rather than addictive. But British English people, we will always say addictive. But coffee is so addictive. So, yeah, I enjoy a good cuppa, but a cup of tea is more to relax. A cup of coffee is to wake me up and get me going and energized for work or whatever else I'm going to do. So, yeah, I'm more of a coffee person, to be honest. What about you? Do you prefer tea or coffee? Let me know in the comments. Now, number 8. Have you ever been to the pub for a cheeky pint on a school night? In British English, we use the word cheeky quite a lot. And it can mean like mischievous, like a cheeky pint, a mischievous pint, or one little pint. What's the worst that could happen? And of course, I have been to the pub for a cheeky pint on a school night. Obviously, come on. I'm 32 years old. I've lived a little bit. But it's true that on a school night, or nowadays a work night, I do try to avoid going out for a drink. But, if it's a special occasion or somebody else is celebrating something, maybe I've got some news to tell, then I'll probably go out for a cheeky pint. And if the weather is really nice as well, you're more tempted or enticed to go out and have a pint. Because if the weather's nice, you want to sunbathe, put your sunnies on, sit back, lean back, relax, and enjoy a cheeky pint. Okay, number 9. Who's the funniest person you know? Someone who's always up for a laugh. It's difficult because I think being funny can vary a lot. There are some people who are really funny in one way, other people who are really funny in another way. So it's hard to say. But speaking about my best mates from school and from my hometown, I'd say Jack is hilarious, but not because he tells jokes. It's more the fact that he's a bit weird. He's a strange man, and he doesn't really care what people say or think. He's just, being himself, doing what he wants, and he gets into some funny scenarios and situations. And he's always up for a laugh. He's always happy to have fun. So at the weekend, he'll always be one of these guys who you can rely on to go out on a night out with. And he doesn't really like staying at home. So he's always up for going out. And he's always up for having a laugh. So I'd say, off the top of my head, Jack is one of the funniest people that I know. If you're listening to this, Jack, you can take this as a compliment. But I highly doubt that you are listening. Okay, number 10. Are you more of a party animal or someone who prefers a quiet night in? Now, this is clear for me. Despite me saying that I enjoy going out for a cheeky pint and stuff like that, I much prefer a quiet night in. For me, there is nothing better than ordering a takeaway or making a delicious meal, watching a film, or starting a really addictive series and just watching episode after episode, binge watching it. So I'm definitely a homebody. I'm someone who enjoys being at home. And an example of this is just last night. Well, yesterday. It was spitting, it was drizzling, it was raining a little bit. So we went out a little bit during the day to, go for a walk, have some food, and see what was going on in the city. And then we had some other drinks in the evening. But when the sun went down, I just wanted to get back to my apartment, lie down on the sofa, get some comfy clothes on, basically like a pajama, and then just have a quiet night in. So that's what we did in the end. At 9, 10 o'clock, we headed home, made some dinner, and then We started watching a lovely series, and it was great. And I woke up this morning after having a lie-in, not having a hangover. So, thumbs up to that for sure. Okay, the next section, all related to home and the local area. And again, I'm going to have another sip of my smoothie. All right, number 11. What's your gaff like? Do you live in a flat or a semi-detached? So a gaff is a house, very British, very slang. And if somebody asks, what's your gaff like? They're asking, what is your house like? Do you live in a flat or a semi-detached? And this doesn't give you that many options. So a detached house is one that doesn't share a direct wall. Semi-detached is basically one house that is split in the middle. So then you have one house on one side, another house on the other side. So if you have noisy neighbors, it might be a little bit of a problem. But right now, I live in a flat here in Brussels. It's very open. It's relatively spacious, but not spacious enough. We need more room for sure. And when I do move out of my gaff, I'll let you know because it'll be exciting to see where I end up moving. I don't know when it'll be or where it'll be, but hopefully my next gaff will be an upgrade. It'll be much bigger than the one where I live at the moment. Here's hoping. Now, number 12. Do you get on with your neighbours? Or do they do your head in? You're doing my head in. This is a lovely advanced colloquial phrase in British English. If someone or something does your head in, it makes you angry. It frustrates you. It annoys you. So my neighbors don't do my head in. They're lovely. Everybody's really nice. The neighbor downstairs, I never really see him, but I have seen him a couple of times and we've had a chat, and he's a nice guy and he's very quiet. He doesn't bother me at all. He doesn't do my head in. And to be honest, despite living in an apartment building and having neighbors on each side, they don't really do my head in. Everybody just sticks to themselves. They live their own life. They don't really bother you. But in fact, that reminds me, in front, on the other side of the road, we have a little bit of a crazy neighbor. Because sometimes in the middle of the night, it's true, this hasn't happened for a long time, but it used to happen. And she would just start like screaming and shouting. And you could see her kind of in the window, maybe speaking to herself or maybe speaking to friends, God. I have no idea. But I think she was a little bit crazy. Like, really crazy. Because she'd start speaking and shouting, sometimes in English, sometimes in French, and I didn't really understand what she was saying, but it was a little bit creepy. In recent months, as I said earlier, she hasn't really made any noise, so maybe she's moved out, or maybe she's not crazy anymore. I'm not sure. But generally speaking, I get on with my neighbors, and they don't do my head in at all. Number 13. What's the best chippy near you? And what do you usually order? So, here in Brussels, there are no chippies, unfortunately. You can have a lot of chips, but you don't really have it with fish. And that's the problem. And a chippy is a fish and chip shop. But back home in Bingley, the best chippy is probably Park Road Fisheries. And this is the chippy where we used to always go with my grandparents. And in fact, my grandparents always came on Tuesdays, and sometimes they'd pick me up from school, or if not, they'd just go to my house on Tuesday afternoon, evening, and they'd always order fish and chips. And what I usually order is a fish, chips, and scraps. So, fish is usually cod or haddock. It's more haddock in the north and cod in the south. But you can have both. Personally, I think haddock is a little bit tastier. And I'd usually get haddock, chips, and scraps. And scraps, it's not very healthy. It's basically just the fish batter that has been fried. So it's like extra crunchy and crispy. And then you can put it on top of your fish or your chips, and it adds another dimension. And then some people, when they go to the chippy, they'll also get a sausage, or sometimes they'll get mushy peas, peas, but like smashed and mushed. And other people might get some different sauces, perhaps a tartar sauce, or gravy, or a curry sauce, which is a little bit interesting or unusual, let's say. But for me, haddock, chips, and scraps. Maybe a tartar sauce, and you've always got to put a lot of salt and vinegar on your fish and chips. If not, it's not a proper fish and chips. So, that is my go-to order. Number 14. Have you got a nice local boozer you like to nip into now and then? Very advanced question. A boozer is basically a pub or a bar, and to nip into is to go into for a short amount of time. You can say nip or pop. I like to nip into the local boozer, or I like to pop into the local boozer. And yeah, here in the square, which is just next to my apartment in Brussels, there is a bar called Impasse. And this is probably my favorite local boozer, because they have a wide variety of Belgian beers. So you've got Pilsners, lagers, you've got IPAs, you've got some stouts and all of these other things. And it's all local. So you are supporting your local commerce at the same time, which I think is important. Wherever you live, I think it's better to purchase and use products that are from within the same, region or country. So this is my local boozer. And I'll go to this boozer maybe once a week. And yeah, it's the kind of place where I go in and I can kind of say hello to the bar staff or the owners. And it's nice. It's nice to have this relationship, I think, with your local boozer. All right, next, travel and getting around. No, actually, number 15. I missed one almost. Is your town lively or a bit dead? Now, my town, Bingley, it's a little bit dead. It's lively at the weekend, but during the week, it's a bit dead and there's not much to do. If a place is described as dead, it means it doesn't have a lot going on. It's not very lively. Okay, now we'll move on to travel and getting around. So number 16, do you usually take the tube, the bus, or do you just leg it everywhere? And to leg it is usually to run. It's like, quick, the police are coming. Let's leg it. And in response to the question, I try to avoid at all costs getting the tube, the bus, the tram. I hate public transport. I mentioned it in the last episode. So if it's possible and it's within a walking or running distance, I much prefer to leg it. Number 17. Have you ever missed the last train and had to fork out for a taxi? And to fork out is to spend a lot of money. And yeah, in Leeds, whenever we go out, the last train back to Bingley, to my town, is usually about 11:30. So there are many times when we'll go out in Leeds with the intention of getting the last train home, and we'll buy a return train ticket. So then it'll be a lot cheaper. But then, you're stuck in the moment. You're having a good time. Maybe you're dancing. Maybe you're just having a chat with your mates. And then you think, okay, we're not going to make the last train, are we? We're going to have to fork out for a taxi. And nowadays, it's not such a big deal because we're all working, we're all adults in our 30s. So we've got enough money if we need to pay for a taxi and split the cost between us. It's not a big deal, and it ends up costing the same as one or two drinks. So it's not a problem. But when we were at university, this was more of an issue because we didn't have as much money. So then when we had to fork out for a taxi, it was like, oh no, what a nightmare. I'm never doing this again. So yeah, this has happened on multiple occasions where unfortunately I've had to fork out for a taxi. Number 18. What's your worst experience getting caught in the rain without a brolly? Ooh, I can remember one time. So less than a year ago, I remember it was the day that I came back to Brussels after being away for like a month over summer in Spain and in the UK. And it was a friend's birthday, and we met up in the park. There were 20 of us, more or less. We were having a drink, we were having some birthday cake, and it was really hot. It was like 25, 26, 27 degrees, and this was the first week of September. And then later on, the plan was to go to some kind of food festival in the park. So at like 8 o'clock, we started walking towards the park, and it started to rain just a little bit. At that time, it wasn't a big problem because it was just raining a tiny amount, and it had been hot and sunny all day. So nobody had a brolly. Nobody had an umbrella because nobody expected it to start raining. And then, just as we were approaching the park, the heavens opened and it started absolutely pouring it down, absolutely chucking it down, absolutely bucketing it down. It was horrible. And in just a few seconds, I was wet through. I was soaked. I was absolutely, it looked like I just had a shower. I was so wet. And of course, all of my mates were in the same scenario as me. And in particular, the worst thing is when you've got wet feet. And of course, when it's pissing it down, you see that you start to have like some kind of river flowing on the streets and the pavements. So your feet are soaked in just a couple of minutes. You get used to it, but when you're walking, you can hear the, maybe that's not a very good sound. You can hear the squelching. And this is the noise that it makes when you are walking and it's really, really wet. And we were in the park. We're in the middle of nowhere. So there were a lot of other people there. Everybody else was trying to get a taxi to go home because we were fed up. We were fed up of being wet. But because there was so much demand for taxis, it was going to take half an hour. And we didn't want to wait another half an hour. So we ended up walking home about half an hour, soaking wet, freezing, shivering. And yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But that was the last time, the worst experience that I can remember of not having a brolly, not having an umbrella, and getting terribly caught in the rain. Now, number 19. Have you ever been proper lost and had to ask a stranger for directions? Honestly, I don't think so. By the way, if you say proper, it's another way of saying like really or very. I'm proper angry. I'm proper lost. I'm proper sad. But I'm really good at directions. I don't like to say that I'm good at anything, but one thing that I am pretty goddamn good at is not getting lost. At least now with Google Maps and everything with my phone, I'm very good at finding the best way to get somewhere and finding some shortcuts and not getting lost. So, honestly, I usually don't ask strangers for directions because I back myself. I tell myself, Lewis, you've got this. Come on, let's do it. So yeah, I can't remember a time when I've been proper lost. So as a result, I haven't had to ask any strangers for directions. Now, number 20. Do you enjoy going on holiday abroad or do you prefer a staycation? And a staycation is a vacation where you stay. So you stay in your own city, town, or sometimes country. And, well, I prefer going on holiday abroad, especially if I'm living in the UK or in Belgium. But if I'm living in Spain, for example, a staycation is a really nice thing to do because there are so many beautiful towns and cities around Spain. And if I'm living in Seville, for example, I could go for a staycation in Granada. I could go to what was I going to say? I could go to, for example, a nice town. I could go to Cordoba. I could go to Cadiz. I could go to Malaga. So if I'm in the UK, I much prefer going on holiday abroad. But if I'm in Spain, I don't really mind. I'm quite happy to go on a staycation in and around the local area. Now, food and drink. Food and drink. Number 21. Have you ever had a full English? And what do you leave on the plate? By the way, right now, I've got a little bit of hay fever. It's spring. I'm allergic to pollen. So, I might sneeze at some time soon. At the moment, I feel like I'm holding it in. But if all of a sudden I start achoo sneezing, it's because I have hay fever. But hey, for the moment, I'm all good. So, let me repeat number 21. Have you ever had a full English? And what do you leave on the plate? Yes, I've had many, many, many full Englishes. Full Englishes are delicious. And the ingredients, let me review. You always have bacon, sausages, mushrooms, beans, tomatoes, hash brown, bread, or even fried bread. And that's about it. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but that is usually what's on a full English. And I never leave anything on the plate. I will gobble everything up. To gobble up is a nice phrasal verb which means to eat very fast or very energetically. I always gobble it up. I eat everything. So yeah, I never leave anything on the plate when I'm having a full English. Oh, and also, let's not forget, black pudding. And black pudding is also known as blood sausage. So that's another important thing that's included in a full English. Number 22. Do you prefer a roast dinner or a takeaway curry on a Sunday? This might be a little bit controversial. A roast dinner is typical English, and it's delicious, and it's what we have for Christmas and some special occasions. But if I have to choose, I think I prefer a takeaway curry. Dun dun dun. Which is now very typically English, but it didn't used to be 100 years ago, obviously. But I think I prefer the flavor of a takeaway curry, and it's so much easier. If you want to make a roast dinner, you're going to spend hours cooking, slaving away in the kitchen. So a takeaway curry is much easier and probably cheaper as well. So that is my go-to takeaway and Sunday meal. Oh, I shouldn't have said this now. Now I really want a takeaway curry. But there aren't that many good curry houses in Belgium. What a shame. Okay, number 23. Have you ever burnt your mouth on a hot pasty or cuppa? A pasty is like pastry with like some meat or filling on the inside. And sometimes they can be really, really hot. If you go to Greg's, which is a famous pastry shop and bakery in the UK, which is famous for its sausage rolls, you can also get some hot pasties as well. Maybe a steak bake or a bean bake, which is pastry and a filling, and it's always piping hot. It's always really, really hot. And sometimes you're hungry, so you want to take a bite, and then you realize that it was too hot, and then you burn your mouth. So I've done this many times, usually not with a cuppa, but with hot pasties, I've done it before quite a lot. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. Now, 24. What's your ultimate comfort food when you're feeling a bit peckish? And if you're feeling peckish, you're feeling a little bit hungry. Remember that starving is very hungry, and peckish is a little bit hungry. So if I'm feeling a bit peckish, one comfort food that I love is crumpets. Crumpets. Yes. I made a video about crumpets about a month ago, and it's basically a cheap, kind of healthy snack that you put in the toaster. It's a mixture between bread and pancake, and then you put loads of butter on top of it. And it's so nice. It's so Moorish. It's so addictive. And this is a really good option if you're feeling a little bit peckish. And if you want it to be healthier, you can replace the butter with hummus. And that way you have more protein and less fat, or at least less saturated fat. And speaking about saturated fat, number 25. Ever had a dodgy kebab after a night out? Of course, who hasn't? So, in the UK, if you're going on a night out, then you're about to go home, you want to soak up the alcohol. And what many people will do is either get a pizza, get some fried chicken, or you get a kebab. And usually they're not very good kebabs. You can have amazing kebabs. In Germany, they have really good kebabs, and in Turkey, obviously, incredible. But in the UK, the kebabs are never that good, and they're not very healthy at all. They're very dodgy. You shouldn't trust them. And I have had many dodgy kebabs after a night out, but I try not to. I try to tell myself, come on, Lewis, you don't need to do this. You can just go home, and I'm sure there's something in the fridge. In particular, if I'm staying at my mum and dad's, the fridge is always full, so I always have plenty of options. So, in that case, I try to avoid getting a dodgy kebab because I know I can get home and then I can rustle something up. I can cook something relatively quickly. But yeah, I've had too many dodgy kebabs in my lifetime. All right, now personality and feelings. Number 26. What winds you up more than anything? And to wind you up is to annoy you, to do your head in. And I mentioned this maybe on another recent podcast, but it's fresh in my memory. The thing that winds me up more than anything is slow Wi-Fi. If I'm working and the connection is cutting out, it winds me up so much. Can't stand it. Now, let's keep going. I don't want to take up an hour and a half, so I'm going to try and speed up this podcast, I got into it. I started chatting, and then I couldn't stop. So number 27. Are you usually chilled out or do you get a bit stroppy sometimes? Stroppy is grumpy or moody. Now, it's difficult because I am usually chilled out, but I do sometimes get a bit stroppy. Sometimes little things annoy me, and they shouldn't. There's no reason why they should. Random noises, if I'm having to wait for something and I'm not very patient, I can get a bit stroppy. Or if there are any delays when I'm flying or when I'm, traveling using public transport because I don't like it. If there are any problems, I get proper stroppy, proper moody, really grumpy. Now, number 28. Have you ever made a complete fool of yourself and felt like a right muppet? A muppet is a silly person, a stupid person. And if you make a fool of yourself, you're gonna look like a muppet. It's true. I have a story that I don't know if I should tell you or not, because it's really embarrassing. Like, terribly embarrassing. I don't think I'm going to tell you it right now, but let me know in the comments. If you want me to tell this story, you need to comment. You need to comment and say, Lewis, tell us the embarrassing story. Because it's a story that sometimes I'll tell my friends, and my old friends were there and they remember it, but it's so embarrassing. And I made an absolute fool out of myself. And I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it was when I was 17 years old. It was a house party at a friend's house. And I remember going to school on the Monday after, and everybody was laughing at me. So I made a proper fool of myself. And I felt like a right muppet. But for now, I'm not going to tell you. If you want to hear the story, I need to see lots and lots of people saying, Lewis, tell me the embarrassing story. Hopefully not too many of you say it, because if a lot of you do, I probably will have to tell the story. So let's see. Now, number 29. Who do you go to when you're feeling a bit down in the dumps? To feel down in the dumps is to feel sad, to feel down. And the person I go to when I'm feeling down in the dumps is my girlfriend, of course. I live with her. She's my best friend. I can tell her anything. So if I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps, which doesn't usually happen, but if it does happen, I'm going to go to my girlfriend and ask for advice, or maybe just a hug. And hopefully I'll feel better after that. Because usually she cheers me up. She makes me feel happier. Now, number 30. Do you reckon you're good at banter? Banter is a very, very British thing. It's basically joking and having a laugh. So you could say that somebody has good banter, which means that they're a fun person to be around. And they're good at making quick, fast, intelligent, and witty jokes. And I don't think I'm that good at banter. I wish I was better at it. I'm not bad at thinking of one-liners and thinking of little funny comments with my students or with my friends, but I don't think I'm the best at, telling funny stories. Which is ironic because I'm telling you lots of stories at the moment. But I don't reckon I'm that good at banter. I'm okay. I can hold my own. I can get by. But I'm not the best at banter. There are other people I could think of where, they know exactly what to say. They know how to make you laugh. They know how to have a good laugh. But I don't think I'm exactly one of these people. But maybe it's a work in progress and I'll get better as I get older. Let's hope so. Now, moving on, number 31, work and school. Have you ever had a boss who was a complete nightmare? Now, I don't think I have, I haven't had that many bosses in my life. And I don't think any of them have been a complete nightmare. With any employee or any boss, they all have their pros and cons. They have their advantages and disadvantages. My last boss was really good in some things, and in other aspects, he could have been better. But like me, I could have been a much better manager to many of the other teachers that I was managing, because in my last company, I was managing a team of 10, 15 teachers. And I had a very hands-off approach because I didn't really want to tell anybody off or punish them if they did something that was wrong. So I'd give some tips and tricks and I'd try to help them. But my way of managing was very hands-off. I let them figure out their own solutions to problems. So I'm not exactly answering the question because I've never had a boss who was a complete nightmare. But I think with any boss, you're always going to have some positives and negatives. And I'll leave it at that. Now, number 32. Have you ever pulled a sickie just to have a duvet day? And to pull a sickie is to pretend you are sick, to not go to work or school. And a duvet day is a day under the duvet, under the blankets, in bed, basically. And I don't think I've ever done this. No, I'm an honest person, reliable person, trustworthy person, and I tell the truth. I don't lie. So I have never pulled a sickie. But I bet you have. I bet you have. Tell me about it. When did you pull a sickie? Number 33. What's the most boring job you've ever had? It was a real slog. If something is a slog, it's hard work. And the most boring job that I've ever had was probably my first job. And it was when I was a paper boy. I had a paper round and I used to deliver newspapers to different houses. It wasn't a real slog because it took me an hour every day after school, and I'd walk around my neighborhood or walk around the local town delivering newspapers through different people's letterboxes. It was boring. Like, I was bored out of my mind sometimes. But I was walking, so at least I was outside, breathing fresh air. It could have been worse. Other than that, I've always had pretty interesting jobs. So I could count myself lucky. Now, number 34. Have you ever had a workmate who was always skiving? Skiving. To skive is to not go to work or not go to school. And not really. But in my last company, there was one teacher who was always sick. Suspicious, right? It smelled a bit fishy, a bit suspicious. And she was always off work, and that meant that I had to cover some of her classes. And this did my head in. I couldn't stand it because I'd go to bed knowing and thinking that I was only going to have 4 classes the next day. And then I'd see a message the next morning from this teacher saying, "Oh, Lewis, I'm so sorry. I can't come to work today. I feel really, really sick. I was puking all night." And when it happens a few times in a row, you start to question it and wonder, really? Really? Is she actually sick? Or is she skiving? Is she pulling a sickie? So I will never know what the truth was. But I think she might have been skiving. That's my guess. But we'll never know. We will never know. Now, number 35. Do you think school uniforms are naff or a good idea? And if something is naff, it's rubbish. It's not very good. And I think school uniforms are a good idea. Yeah. I don't think they're naff. Some of them can look naff. Maybe there's weird colors or weird ties that you have to wear. But I think school uniforms are good because it makes everybody equal, or at least makes everybody seem more or less equal. And equality is really important, in my opinion. So school uniforms are not naff. They're a good idea. I think everybody should have a school uniform, to be honest. Do you agree? What do you think? Do you think school uniforms are naff, or are they a good idea? Okay, let's keep going. Next section, related to leisure and hobbies. So 36. Are you into footy? Which team do you support? Or do you not give a toss? Footy is football, and to give a toss is to care. So if you don't give a toss, you don't care. And yeah, I'm into footy. Am I? I love footy. I'm addicted to footy. Footy is amazing. In fact, I need to finish this podcast in 15 minutes because then the footy is on. So that tells you everything. And I support Leeds United. Leeds. And the Leeds United song is Marching On Together. And it goes like this. Marching on together. We're gonna see you win. Na 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 na. We are so proud. We shouted out loud, we love you, Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. Na 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 na. I hope you liked it. If you did, you can Google it and type in "Marching On Together." One of the best and most underrated football anthems that exist. And yeah, I'm into footy. Number 37. Have you ever tried your hand at something totally random, like knitting or stand-up comedy? To try your hand at something is to try something, basically. And I haven't. I've never tried knitting. I've never really tried sewing either. And my banter isn't that good, so I wouldn't be able to be a stand-up comedian. But I'd like to try something new at some point, but it wouldn't be knitting, it wouldn't be sewing, and it wouldn't be stand-up comedy either. So I'll have a think about what I could try my hand at. Let's see. Now, number 38. What's a show you binged and thought was absolutely brilliant? A show that I binged and I thought it was brilliant, but depressing because I was watching it yesterday is Handmaid's Tale. The Handmaid's Tale. And it's creepy, it's horrible, it's depressing, but it's pretty brilliant at the same time. And it's about a dictatorship in the United States, which they say is to be very religious, but it basically means cruelty and lots of suffering, where you have a few powerful men who install a system of hatred and of oppression and of basically genocide and sexism. And then, yeah, they'll do horrible things. And I finished it yesterday, and the ending was pretty good, but it's really depressing. And it's brilliant, but it's depressing. So that is a show that I binged recently, that I watched a lot of episodes in a short amount of time. The Handmaid's Tale. Now, number 39. Do you prefer a day out at the seaside or a stroll through the countryside? The seaside is the beach. A stroll is a leisurely walk. And I prefer a day out at the seaside because even if you go to the seaside, you can still go for a stroll on the beach. So you can have the best of both worlds, really. Yep, I prefer a day out at the seaside. Now, number 40. Have you ever been to a festival and ended up knee-deep in mud? Knee-deep, up to your knees. I haven't been to a festival in quite a long time, but I used to always go to Leeds Fest, which is from my city. And yeah, if it rains and you've got loads of people wearing Wellington boots, big waterproof boots, and they're all walking around, it keeps raining, people are dancing, the whole countryside just becomes a sea of mud. And yeah, I've been knee deep in mud before, but I haven't been to a festival for quite a long time. So my memories of this are a little bit vague now. I don't remember very clearly anymore. Now, opinions and culture. Number 41. Do you think British weather gets a bad rap, or is it actually rubbish? Do you think British weather gets a bad rap, or is it actually rubbish? I think it's pretty rubbish. Um, but it's not as rubbish as what many people say. And to get a bad rap is to have a bad reputation, basically. And yeah, I think British weather does get a bad rap because recently when I've been back in the UK, it hasn't rained that much. And in winter, it's never that cold either. It's rarely below 0. So it's not that cold. And when the weather is good in the UK, it is amazing because people make the most of it. Everybody's outside. When it's sunny and it's 20 odd degrees, British weather and being in the UK is marvelous. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's outstanding. It's incredible. It's breathtaking. But sometimes it can be a bit rubbish. I'm going to be home in a few days, and I've just checked the weather forecast, and it was like 16 degrees and rain. And this is in June. Terrible. Okay, number 42. What's your opinion on queuing? Is it sacred or overrated? Queuing is sacred. You must queue, and you must respect the rules of the queue. Because if there is no queue, what do we have? It's anarchy. It's chaos. Armageddon. Now, I think most cultures queue very well. It's not just the Brits. But we do like our queues to be respected. And if people jump the queue and try to overtake you, I will look at them and stare at them with a look of hatred, but I probably won't actually say or do anything about it. I probably should. Maybe I'm not very brave. But yeah, queuing is sacred. Like, you need to wait in line. Come on. If you arrived first, you should get what you want first. And if you arrive after that person, you should be the second in line. And so on and so forth. Obviously. Now, number 43. First, let me have a little bit more of my juice. You might have forgotten that I still have this smoothie, but it's still here. Okay, smoothie, done. Now let's finish the last questions. So what's something totally British that you find charming or just plain weird? Something that is totally British, that is really charming, is an afternoon tea. So in many British cafes or coffee shops or tea rooms, you'll have this concept which is an afternoon tea. And it's a little bit posh, but it's pretty cool at the same time. And you'll often go with family, and you'll go in the afternoon, and you'll have included lots of tea, some extra drinks, all in some amazing silverware and good china. And then you'll have these little sandwiches that are very cute. Maybe not the most delicious, but they look good. And you'll start with sandwiches, whilst you're having a cuppa, and then you'll move on to some cakes, some scones, some other desserts, and this is pretty charming. It's, how many people see British culture that isn't that common, but it exists. And this idea of afternoon tea is really charming. It's really beautiful. It's really cute. And it is quintessentially British for sure. All right, 44. Is it ever okay to jump the queue if you're in a rush? Queuing is sacred, remember? So no. But if, for example, you're at the airport and you're about to miss your flight, sometimes this will happen where you'll see people being like, excuse me, my flight is about to leave. It's leaving, it's taking off in 15 minutes. Then I think it's okay to jump the queue. Like, I'm not going to blame them. I'm not going to stare at them with hatred. Maybe I am. But I will let them jump the queue. No worries. So that's the one exception. Or if somebody's very sick and you need to get to them to help them. Of course, I have a heart as well. All right, number 45. Do you find British sarcasm hilarious or hard to get? Now, I'm British, so I understand it when people are being sarcastic and ironic. Sometimes people will be too sarcastic. It's never nice if people are being sarcastic when you really want to explain something important. That's true. But yeah, I think it's funny. Being sarcastic is funny. Are you ever sarcastic? Let me know. Now, some final questions. They're just random and fun ones. So 46. Have you ever had a go at speaking in a posh accent? And did it sound pants? If something is pants, it's rubbish. Now, I would never speak with a posh accent because I'm not a posh person. So then it would sound pants. This is me trying to do a posh accent, and I think it sounds pants. So I should probably stop doing this posh accent now. Pants, right? Moving on, 47. What's a British slang word you love and one you think sounds silly? So a British slang word I love is, I'd say probably buzzing. I'm buzzing. Buzzing means really excited. It's like, oh, I'm buzzing that I'm seeing my friends next weekend. Or yeah, I'm buzzing that this video already has 100 million views. I wish I would be buzzing. So that's a slang word I love. And one that I think sounds silly is flabbergasted. If you are flabbergasted, you are gobsmacked, you're shocked, you're surprised. And if I am flabbergasted, yeah, I'm shocked, I'm surprised. And I think it sounds a bit silly. It's not that common, but buzzing is really, really common. So I challenge you to use it in your next class or conversation. Number 48. Do you reckon the royal family is still relevant? Or is it just a bit of a circus? Now, check out the video that I had and recorded with my mum that I posted a couple of months ago now. And we discussed the role of the British royal family. And personally, I kind of disagree with it, but I don't have strong feelings either way. And my mum loves the British royal family. So I think it's not that relevant anymore, but my mum disagreed with me. So check out that video if you haven't already watched it. Now, number 49. What's your reaction when someone says, fancy a cuppa? Do you fancy a cuppa? Fancy a cuppa? If somebody asks me if I fancy a cuppa, if I would like a cup of tea, I'd say, yeah, why not? Sure, I'll have a cuppa. Go on then. Ooh, the cuppa. Yeah. And then they might ask me, do you want any sugar? And then I would say, no, I'm sweet enough. Okay, final question, number 50. Have you ever been caught in an awkward situation or just wanted the ground to swallow you? This is when you're really embarrassed. You just want the ground to swallow you. Let me think. I don't really know. Okay, yes, I remember. I was at a wedding a year ago, and it was an Indian friend with a Spanish friend who were getting married. So half of the guests spoke English, and half of the guests spoke Spanish. A lot of the Spaniards spoke good English as well, but I was helping to be one of the interpreters in real time, and I accidentally said my wife, and I was referring to my girlfriend. But amid the chaos, translating and interpreting, I said my wife in Spanish, mi mujer, when I should have said my girlfriend, mi novia. And I remember people looking at me. I was stood up, and everyone was like, and I was like, oh no. I just wanted the ground to swallow me because, maybe she'll be my wife in the future. But at that moment, it wasn't the case. So I put my foot in it. I made a little bit of a mistake. And it was awkward. It was embarrassing. But hey, it was no biggie. It was no big deal. It was fine. And on that note, that's it. That is it. 50 random conversation questions, all including a little bit of British English slang. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, let me know. And if you'd like to hear my really, really embarrassing story, leave a comment and beg to hear it. And you might be able to convince me. And I might change my mind. But it's really embarrassing. I promise you. You might stop listening to this podcast if I tell you, because you wouldn't respect me anymore. So, let's see. Let's see. And thanks once again. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye bye.